Frank Hyder is a well-known, renowned visual artist. When he started to become an artist, he thought the journey would be a straightforward progression. Over the years, he has discovered that the road has many twists and turns, numerous hills and valleys, and countless challenges. Through this series of short stories, tales, and remembrances, his hope is that these will offer some valuable insight into the life of an artist and what's involved in becoming an artist. In the end, he has come to realize that he is not a painter or sculptor or anything in particular. He is more simply a creative person with great passion and love for the process of making art concerning people and the world around us, who shares his artworks with the public. Join us now as we listen to another episode of A Life in Art series.
When I returned from my year in Venezuela as a Fulbright, we decided to expand our building in Philadelphia. And in that expansion process, we added 3.5 floors to a one-story structure, and we basically also at the same time we've begun the construction of an art gallery or an exhibition space on the first floor where my studio had been. We were moving my studio to the 4th floor up top. Anyway, in that process, one of the neighbors in the neighborhood approached me about the idea of making a mural on his wall on a building that was pretty much next door to where my building was. And he had talked to Jane Golden at the time, who was the director of Mural Arts in Philadelphia. And he went to her and he told her that he was going to offer this big wall that he had. It was 153 feet long and 55 feet tall. And he was going to give her the wall to paint, but he wanted me to be the artist who painted it. Now, she didn't really know me at all and didn't know if I knew anything about mural painting. And so the only way she would do it is if she would allow one of her master muralists to be in charge, and I could work with that artist. So anyway, I had a meeting. She offered me a couple of different artists. I could pick one, and I chose a guy by the name of Paul Santelleri, who had been painting really ambitious projects. He had done these enormous tanks down by the airport, these refinery tanks. He had done this massive series of murals at the Philadelphia Zoo. And he was I could tell he was a well-trained and a creative artist. He was also a Skowhegan alum, which I liked because I had shared that background. So I knew that I was going to be dealing with a painter who had some real experience. So anyway, I had brought back with me from Venezuela a Venezuelan artist who had shown in the Venice Biennale in 1986, and I wanted to get him involved in the process. So what I did was I approached Jane Golden with this notion that we do a 3-person mural painting. She was open to the idea, and then, but she wanted to be certain that Paul was in charge, so he had the final say. And then Paul and Henry Bermudez, the Venezuelan, and myself began to have meetings where we would discuss what we were going to do. So we would put paper on the wall in my studio, and we would draw on it and play with it and do different things. And it was clear that we had a dialogue that we could work with each other, but nobody really had a clear plan of what we could do. So I came up with this notion of dividing the wall into rectangles, and I cut a bunch of cards that would match those rectangular shapes. And then what we did was the idea was an exquisite corpse. So we would all take one card and make a drawing on it, and then take 3 more cards and make a drawing that extended that drawing. And we would then keep crossing from one artist to the next, passing the cards and adding a panel next to it. So what we were doing was creating a mural that had a theme, and the theme was nature. But the approach of the image was to be broken into these rectangular sections. So I think there was 24 sections in total in the whole wall. And so what we then did, after we had all these drawings worked out, we laid it out and we approached Jane with the plan, and she accepted it. And we then began to plan to paint the wall. So Henry and I really didn't have that much experience. Paul was the lead, and he showed us how to set up the wall to get it started. And after we had it all sort of laid out and we had the paint arrived, we talked about how we would get the image on the wall, etc. And then once we had entered that spot, that was a place where Henry and I were as comfortable as any other person, any other artist could ever be. We were just ready to go, and we just went to the wall with an energy that surprised Paul, and he quickly realized that this was not going to be an ordinary project, and he just jumped right in, and all 3 of us went to this work on this wall. In 30 days, we essentially had finished this giant wall. The product really came together really well. Jane was very happy and very excited. And then I came up with the idea of expanding on that. And so what I said was, let's do this. Everybody takes a panel from the wall, each one of us, 3 of us, and we're going to get 2 wooden plywood panels that are 36 inches by 48 inches, and we're going to make black and white woodcut from that image on the wall. So each of us did that. Then we printed them onto paper and put them together in groups. So they were not traditionally hung like prints. We hung them in stacks. So they were 10-foot tall columns of prints, one on top of each other. And then they stood out into the space so that it was like a physical object. Some of that is obviously connected to some of my paper experiments in Venezuela and my installation experiments, but it was based on the mural wall that we were working our image. With that, then, it was the first time in Philadelphia where we had a installation of a dedication of a mural on a wall, and an installation of a work that was based on the mural in the gallery space, and we opened them at the same time, and it turned out to be a really very popular and very successful exhibit. The gallery got started. It was the first exhibition in the gallery. The mural was good, and Henry got a job working with Mural Arts and was working on other mural projects around the city. And I had begun a relationship with Jane, which was to develop from that point going forward, to the point where I did a couple more mural projects with her in Philadelphia, and my real interest was in trying to get something going outside of Philadelphia in Latin America. I wanted to do a mural in Venezuela, and I wanted to use some of Jane's support. But anyway, I came into the Mural Arts building one day, and I saw Jane's assistant, and he told me that Jane was in a really terrible mood because she had been planning this mural conference in Mexico City, and the grandson of Diego Rivera was handling the Mexico City side of it, and that the Mexican government had canceled the funding for the project. So he told her that they had to cancel the whole project. And she was very upset because she had put a lot of effort in trying to get this thing organized. And she had a lot of groups from different parts of the United States and international muralists who were interested in going to Mexico. So I said, look, I can help. And I did have some connections in Mexico City from some programs that I had run for the Moore College of Art down there. And I said, let me help. So what I did was I got a hotel, and we got reservations, and we put 250 muralists in this hotel. We then, through some other contacts, we got a space in Mexico City where we could hold the conference. And then when Diego Rivera's grandson found out that we were coming anyway and we were going to do it without their support, they threw in some support, and they gave us a big reception when we got to Mexico City, and then arranged for a conference site where we could hold the lectures and the interactions in part of the city called Coyoacan, which is where Frida Kahlo had lived and Diego Rivera. And so anyway, we did the conference, and it was really a terrific success. And during the conference, I got to meet Diego Rivera's daughter, and as well as obviously her grandson. So I suggested to Jane, I said, Jane, if you could get Diego Rivera's daughter to come to Philadelphia, maybe give a lecture for mural arts, I could arrange in our gallery an exhibition of Latin American art that she could come to the gallery, and you could have an opportunity to do something more specific to mural arts there. So anyway, she was able to get the Philadelphia Museum to invite her to come to Philadelphia and give a lecture, which was done in conjunction with a lecture that she gave in New York City on public art. And then after those two lectures, she came to our gallery in downtown Philadelphia on 2nd Street, the Projects Gallery, and she gave a lecture on public art and where art was failing to be public and when it was succeeding to be public art. And she thoroughly enjoyed the exhibition. We had a really great time. There was a big, a really nice dinner. It was all really quite a lot of fun. And out of that had developed this relationship of making a mural and developing an international connection. The very next thing I did was to get an assignment to do a mural in Venezuela in the Andes Mountains in the city of Mérida. And I contacted the woman who ran the American language school there, and I designed a mural that would completely cover the building. And then I recruited 10 American college students from the Moore College of Art to go with me to make this mural. So to get the paint to Venezuela, each student had to carry 2 gallons of color, and we could take our 22 gallons of paint with me carrying 2 as well. And then I recruited students at the University of the Andes in Mérida at their art school to come over and join us. So on any given day, we would have 20 people painting. So the first day, we took my drawing and enlarged it and put it on the wall and using a grid structure, and painted the base of the drawing for the image, which was 155 feet long and 18 feet tall. And then we spent the majority of 2 weeks working on that painting. At the same time, people at the university were eager to have us do a painting at the university, so I made a proposal and went into a faculty meeting at the university and made a proposal for a painting in the university. And I then had the students working in the courtyard on canvas, on the mural on the ground, and then we would transport the mural to the building site and attach it to the wall. So I had that project going on inside the courtyard of the building where we were painting the walls outside. And then as we got further along, we took the painting to the university, and with 3 students, I mounted it on the wall. And then every day we would paint on the big painting in the main building. And then in the afternoon, I would take a taxi with a couple of the students, and we go over and we do detail work on the other mural that we had attached on the wall. So in a sense, we were doing 2 murals at the same time, 2 different parts of the city, and all of this in a 2-week period. Now, when we would go over to work on the mural, we would get there and they were having student protests. So there was a wall of tires and barricades had been set up, and the students were throwing Molotov cocktails, and the police had them kind of cordoned off into an area. But when the cab driver wouldn't get any closer to the site than a half a block away, we'd get out of the cab, and then I'd hear the students hollering, "Oh, the artists are here, let them through." So they'd stop all their rebel rousing and throwing of fire bombs, etc. We'd walk through the wall, and then they go right back to making all their racket, and we'd go work on the mural and then return. They'd open the gate again, let us go through, and then go back to whatever they were doing. So in the end, we spent that 2 weeks making that international project, and I started out with a request to do a mural. I got very much involved in the whole process, and I learned quite a bit from working with Paul and with Jane Golden, and in the end put a personal spin on it and did a couple of private projects with it, and learned quite a lot in the making of those murals on making art in public places.
Thank you for listening. If you have questions or suggestions for future episodes, please reach out to Frank Hyder on Facebook or Instagram. We hope to see you at one of the next A Life in Art episodes.